Hey y'all, welcome back. Lova's Crafts here, and today's WIP and Chat is going to be about my fertility journey. Quite a few of you have asked on my Instagram in regards to just, how it went in general in order for me to get pregnant and then obviously go into birth. And then, I did already do my birth story on my channel. So get out whatever you're working on and just listening to me rant while my child feeds. So if you guys do hear him in the background, just know that he is feeding. But yeah, so my husband and I started trying about 4 years ago. We've been married for 5, and we started trying for a child almost pretty quickly after we got married. I had previously had an IUD, and I got that removed. And then we started trying with no avail after 6 months, which I thought was really crazy. I didn't really understand why we weren't conceiving as quickly as possible. So that kind of led for like another 6 months. I was like, okay, let's go another 6 months. My husband and I finally did take the step to see a specialist. Now, I will say that my experience is a little different. Sometimes you hit on the first try with a specialist, sometimes you have to go further. So our first specialist was honestly not a good time. Our specialist was male, and he was more old school in the sense of, trying. He was very adamant to push the Clomid, so I was on Clomid. After the initial ultrasound, day 14 ultrasound, he said that he saw nothing wrong, which I should have known from the jump was probably the issue, because he was very quick to say everything looks fine, like my uterine lining looks fine, everything inside looks fine, my ovaries are producing. After the first set of Clomid, which he immediately prescribed to me, it was 50 milligrams for, I believe, 5 days. 5 days. From days 2 to 7. And I remember that specifically because I didn't understand why it was 2 to 7. But, so we did that for 3 cycles with the 50 milligrams. Then we continued for another 2 cycles. I did get an HSG procedure done within that time frame, which is basically an x-ray where they shoot dye through a catheter into your uterus, and it basically spills out of your fallopian tubes, basically highlighting if there's any blockages or anything. A lot of people get fertility determined by that. I'm not sure why, because for me, obviously, everything was fine. So that was like which should have been another red flag for me, because even that whole procedure, to get it done the first time was traumatic for me. The person who was supposed to do it supposedly couldn't find my cervix. So they didn't even call down to OB or anybody to come help. So I left basically in pain and traumatized. And because of that situation, my husband did call the board to get the procedure redone free of charge, which did happen. The second time was more, it was quick, it was more pleasurable, in a sense of, the nurses were great, the person who was actually doing the procedure knew exactly what they were doing, again, to show that everything was clean and clear. So after that, the specialist did up the dose from 50 milligrams to 100 milligrams for Clomid, again, days 2 to 7, and this time with an HCG trigger shot, an IUI procedure. This was where I can honestly say this cycle was odd, because the specialist told my husband to eat bananas and drink Robitussin to up his numbers. Mind you, he had already did like two samples. He's fine. I never thought that our fertility issues came from my husband. I always kind of knew it was me, and I couldn't put my finger as to why I always thought it was me, but I knew it was me. So yeah, but that IUI procedure did take place around my 30th birthday, and I was going to find out if I was pregnant or not by our anniversary, which is 4/20. Obviously, I got my period that day, so that was really kind of like depressing for me, and I was at that point where I was ready to completely give up. So come the next cycle into May, come to find out that specialist did retire, and I had to be on basically find a new specialist. But then the hospital did, I guess, reroute me as a patient to who is now my OB, and I'm incredibly, greatly appreciative of her. Dr. Marshall, she's amazing. She, I guess, took me on as a patient. So the way she did things was a little different. She did have me come in June of 2023. Yeah, 2023. Because that's the time limit we're up to now. 2023. She made me come in, do an ultrasound. Immediately on ultrasound, she said that my uterine lining was too thick, like way too thick, and she was concerned about that. She immediately said that she believes that I have endometriosis. Now, I don't know too much about endometriosis. I didn't really look into anything. I only ever heard of it from an ex-best friend at the time who essentially went through everything I'm about to explain to you guys before she conceived her son. And for me, I was kind of taken aback because I was like, why would I have, like, what? Like, I didn't think that I had endometriosis. Upon actually looking up any of the diagnosable, like, symptoms or whatever, I didn't feel like I had any of them. So she said that she wanted to do a laparoscopic surgery to essentially confirm that I did have endometriosis. I was skeptical at first for the mere fact that I didn't think it was necessary, but at the same time, I felt like, who's to know? And mind you, I want to just put this out there for those who are trying. I'm pretty sure endometriosis is usually at least definitively confirmed by a laparoscopic surgery. To choose to want to do the surgery is always up to you, but I will say choosing not to do it may leave more questions for later than it will for if you're trying to do it now. I, at 30, now 31, I was already feeling like it was too late, because I always told myself that with my multiple sclerosis, which is still very much an ongoing thing, I wanted to have children by at least the age of 32, otherwise I wouldn't have any. And I was very adamant about that, because at that point for me as a person, I think it's too late to have kids. So she did start me on progesterone, and then started me on a Clomid to try one round naturally with just the Clomid back down to 50 milligrams. So we did that. Then she did say she did want me to essentially consider the surgery. Come August 21st of 2023, I did have my laparoscopic surgery. Prep was obviously easy. It was just progesterone that I was on, and prednisone. I was also on prednisone for a while, and I feel like that was probably the key, not just for my MS, but for the entire situation in general. I feel like the prednisone really did do me justice, along with walking, changing my diet, things like that I was still doing even prior to. It was just the prednisone was the added for anti-inflammatory reasons. So with that being said, I did have my laparoscopic surgery on August 21st of 2023. She did discover that I had stage 3 endometriosis. And according to her, I do still have some. She didn't understand or know how deep one section of the endometriosis went, and she didn't want to either, puncture my uterus or the other organs surrounding it. But the endometriosis was starting to attach itself. So she did basically burn it all off, or burn enough of it off. She did cut out some as well. And then from there, we started our first round. Once I was able to get my cycle back. Now, recovery for the surgery was very minimal, although I definitely wish I would have taken 2 weeks off from work versus a week off from work, because going back to work after that surgery was not fun. But I did essentially, like, I don't know, it was weird. But I did go back to work, was walking, did everything, had the, again, 50 milligrams of Clomid. We did do a trigger shot, and we did do an IUI that cycle when I did get my period on 9/20/2023. I got my IUI done on October 2nd. Then obviously we still tried naturally as well. My conception date does align with a natural try, obviously. But by October 14th of 2023, I knew I was pregnant. They were like, no, it's just the trigger shot. I promise you, you will know if it's the trigger shot or not. I did test it out. Like I was actually doing the Amazon test strips to test out the trigger shot and then to see if it came back. And it did come back. Then I started to go for blood work around my 4 to 5 week mark, and my numbers were going up. I did get COVID around this time, which was hard to deal with that on top of pregnancy. So the fatigue was probably 10 times worse than it needed to be. But I did get pregnant right after. Now, I did see an interview somewhere on TikTok with Halsey. She's a pop singer. If you guys don't know who she is, she also had endometriosis, and she did have that laparoscopic surgery, and then she ended up pregnant with her child directly after that. I think about 2-3 years ago. And it's just amazing, again, because they tell you how quickly, I guess, you're supposed to, or I guess like the time frame is like within 3 months of that surgery. But they also said that about the HSG procedure, that you should, because it cleans you out. But my doctor did say that after she did the laparoscopic surgery, she did perform a DNC to clean me out, to basically reset my uterus, and that's why I was able to get pregnant almost immediately after that. So again, you guys have been with me throughout my entire fertility journey, and I hope that kind of answers some of the questions that you guys had. I didn't think that I ever had endometriosis. I was not the type to, I guess, complain of stomach pain or even my cramp pain. Like, my cramps were really bad, and that's how I knew I had, like, I always just thought it was a bad period, because my thing was that I have a very high pain tolerance. So when I would get my period, I would be like, okay, well, I'm cramping, just use a heating pad on the highest setting, and then, like, it will only last like 1 or 2 days. It wouldn't last my entire bleeding period. It was just literally like right before I would get it, and then maybe 24 hours after. But I never had any issue with my cycle being like either extremely late or extremely like early. I never had issue with me getting it like twice in 1 month. But I do think that all the years that I was on birth control, even prior to me getting married, and then the IUD maybe exasperated it. I do believe that stress probably exasperated it. Again, as a child, I don't remember having these, going into like my adolescent and then adulthood, having these issues to even give me an inkling of endometriosis. It just, again, it was up until I really started trying with my husband and I couldn't get pregnant that it was really taking a toll. I will want to say to those who are trying, though, understand that fertility does and will take a toll on your marriage or your relationship or even on you. It was not easy, and I was ready to give up on multiple occasions. And although I have my son now, I don't typically feel like I am at more ease should I try again. I think it's always going to be, you know, I want to give myself a little time, see how, my cycle restarts and things like that. And if the pain is moderate or what comes of it, only because, again, endometriosis doesn't go away. It doesn't necessarily, it can come back. And I had a stage where they would typically say, let's try IVF versus IUI. I will say, though, for those who are trying, go through that channel first. It is cheaper to do IUI how many times versus IVF. And, I think it's good, too, to look into those options. But I think at the end of the day, if, my second specialist didn't kind of fall into my hands, my husband and I would still be trying to, try to have a baby, which was, again, my son is definitely a blessing in disguise in his little way, the way he came in, and the journey that we had to take to obtain our little blessing. I do want to say to those who are trying, though, to not give up. Everybody has their story. Everybody has their shortcomings and the way to kind of maneuver through this. But I will say, I think the best advice is to make sure you get a second opinion. Make sure you see someone who is willing to help you. Don't just take, because I hear, a lot of people say, and those who have hit me up in the DMs about this, about their weight or about their lifestyle, or, they always want to contribute it to looks, not necessarily the symptoms. But if you are having pain, if you do feel like you are, and PCOS is a totally different thing. I don't believe I ever had that. But really look at all of your options. Look across the board. Go to somewhere where they specialize or they are certified to determine endometriosis versus, PCOS versus just actually having infertility issues with no natural or whatever cause. It's part of your health as a birthing person to know what's going on. As a mother, and I will say it like that, as a mother, because no one's going to take this title away from me now. As a woman as well, know your cycle, know how things work. But yeah, that's my little story. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. If you guys have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And I shall see you guys in the next video. Bye, y'all.